Okay, now that we've got our first maze, I'm going to have a second maze, and what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to create another sprite. I'm going to create a new costume. So on this side, if I go down to the cat, I can paint a new costume. There you go, it's blank, and I can do exactly the same thing again, probably making it a little harder. What I'm going to do is choose fill. I'm going to get a different colour for that. I'm going to get maybe a red. Let's choose a nice red. There we go, so it's different to the first one. And we're sticking with no outline. So let's draw first of all the border around the outside. Now, it doesn't have to be the same as the last one, but I'm going to create a border that is the same. They're going to be changing slightly as we go through the mazes. There we go. And try to keep them as rectangles. Don't have any strange shapes at the moment. And there we go. There's my border. Now, in the last one, I had the the run when he was going to go up and down. This time, I'm going to have one going from side to side. So, pretty much the same thing. Just leaving enough gap for my character to go through at the end. But I'm going to draw some little pieces for him to run through, or her, it, and there we go. So there's my second maze. So there's my first maze. So if they complete this maze, get to the end, they will go on to the second maze and have to run through this one, get to that end. And as we go on, so we can change the colours of the mazes and we can make them more difficult. So the next thing I really want to do is start on the first one. This little character I want to make smaller. So I'm going to click on the sprite, and if I find here the size is 100, let's make him really, really small. Let's change that to 10. And that's probably a little bit too small for my maze, so make it larger. Let's go to 30. That's better. So my character is now size 30. He fits in the maze, and I can pick him up and I can move him. And what I want to do is move him to the very start of the maze. Make sure he is not touching any of the colours. Make sure he's in the white area, and that's fine. So I've started with my first maze, so make sure you're on the first costume. Don't worry about these costumes at the moment. We are going to change the cat. Please don't play with it at the moment. You'll just be wasting time. What is important is noticing these numbers here. Got an X value of -191 and a Y value of 134, and the size is 30. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the code blocks, and I'm going to make my very first piece of code. And this is the piece of code that I'm going to use. Go to -191134. Notice they are the same numbers that are down here. And that is because I moved the cat to that position. So when I went for the go to XY blocks, these numbers were set. If I'd have had the cat in the middle, then I would have to come and change these numbers to where I wanted it to go. So be careful on what you do. These numbers are incredibly important, and we're going to use the values is X and Y, which is just the same as in maths when we've got a graph showing X being the horizontal axis and Y being the vertical axis, but we're going to do it in four sections. So there'll be a line going down. So your y's will go from 0 to a positive number and will go down, and that will be a negative number. And the same will go for your x's. As you go right, it will be positive. As you go left, it will be negative. So we'll learn how to do that in a bit. One last thing I want to do, because at the moment this is sort of a jigsaw piece without a start. So I'm going to go over to my control blocks, and I'm going to look for a control block which says when I press the green flag, there we go. Oh, sorry, it's events, not controls. So when I click on the green flag, he's going to go to this position, and we can test that out. So I can move my cat down to here, but when I press the green flag, oomph, he goes to the starting position. And this is going to be important, and we will change the way we do this a little bit later on. So there's our first look. We've created 2 costumes for the maze. So if I click on the maze sprite, I've got costume 1, costume 2, and for my character, notice in costume 2 is actually touching the red. We will fix that later. But in costume 1, we've moved our sprite to the start where we want him to begin, and we've created some code. So if I click on the sprite, there's our code. When we press the green flag, go to XY minus 191. So if I take my mouse to the center, that is 0, 0. So minus 191 is going left to about here. And I think we can go as far as minus 240. That's this edge. And it's at 134. So going up on the y-axis to 134. And again, I think that might go up to 180 at the top. But we'll find that out as we go along. Now, before we finish, I just want to change 1 or 2 things. I'm going to click on the maze. Can you see here that we've got it? And it's called Sprite 2. I'm going to change that to be the word maze. So when I'm programming, I can use this word. And on the sprite, I'm going to change that to player for the time being. So instead of sprite 1, I'm going to write player. And that's it. That's the end of the second video. So we've changed the names, we've created the mazes, and we've made a start with where the actual cat lives. At this point, we should choose File and Save to the computer. There we go, and you'll see that it comes down to here, Scratch Project.sb3, that stands for Scratch version 3. And if we click on the up arrow, we can choose Show in the window, and we can rename this if we want. So I'm going to call this Maze Game. Now if you're wondering what you're seeing, I'm actually working on a Mac, so the windows kind of look a little bit different, but it's essentially the same that you got in school. So there's the end of our second one. So I'm going to finish this, and in the next video we're going to look at moving this character around the maze using the keys on the keyboard.